Simply press on W on your keyboard and it will bring you directly to the work in educational mode. Then you press on the keyboard and you open your Tally. Now, whenever you haven't created a company in Tally, this is the basic interface that you are always going to see. The list of selected companies are supposed to be listed down here. But then because we haven't created any business yet, we have the space that is being empty. Now, current period and then the current period only indicates the accounting period you are working in, being it 1st January to 1st December. Not all companies might use that system, especially Chinese companies. They like to start somewhere around May or April. So it may differ depending on the company that you're working with or you're working on. And then we have the current date. Current date is just about today's date, the date you are using. That is it. So that's the basic introduction on the left side. And then we come to the right side. On the right side is where we have the company info, we have select company, we have login as a remote user, we have create company, we have backup, we have restore. I think these are self-explanatory in a way. We are backing up. That is if you already have work done on the PC and you want to save it. It's one of the most important things you would ever do if you are using Tally. Because Tally, this version of Tally isn't online. So if you're working for a company or a business or your own business, um, at least a month or even 2 weeks, you should have a backup somewhere. You never know when your hard disk will crash or your um, laptop might get stolen. Restore is basically used to restore or to the backup that you have done back onto the system that you have. And this is one of the things that makes the cloud software a bit different from the offline software. The cloud software, you don't really, it doesn't really matter where you are. You just go online and you can access your internet. Once you can access your internet, you can get access to your system or your software. Now, the first thing we are going to do, the first exercise we are going to do in our today's day training is to create a company. Now, to create a company, um, put your pointer on the create company and you double click it, start it up. Now, in creating a company in Tally, this is basically what you are going to be seeing all the time whenever you want to create a company. Now, the first thing we are looking at is the directory. The directory simply talks about where we can get the data of the software. So it tells us that you have to go to drive C. When you go to drive C, there's a folder there that is called users. When you open the folder called users, there is public. When you open the folder called public, there is Tally point ERP 9. And then in the data, that is where you're going to get the information you need. So every information we are going to do in relation to the software, apart from the ones that we are going to back up and then determine where it goes to, everything is going to by default go to this directory that the software has provided for you. Second thing is the name box. The name box is a place where you enter the name of the business you're dealing with, or yeah, basically. So the name of the business, let's say this afternoon's business shall be called Hardwork Company Limited. Okay. So Hardwork Company Limited shall be the name of our business. Now, a company's mailing name may differ. A typical example could be in the situation of an enterprise. Now, an enterprise may be trading as hard work, but then the owner's address might be the address of the company. So, though the company's name is Hard Work and Co. Hard Work Company Limited, the mailing address could be, let's say, assuming that is the name of the owner of the business. So, and the mailing box of the business is basically his mailing box, which was registered under his personal name. In such a situation, the mailing box, the mailing name then becomes different from the business name. I think when we were kids, we used to use CO. I don't know if they still use it, care of. Then the person's name comes before our actual name and then everything. All right. So in the address box, we type in our address. I do Marseille. After that, you press enter, and then it continuously brings us to the country we are in. So we select Ghana, then we press enter. Now in the box where we enter our phone number, the idea is to enter the phone or the contact details. The basic idea is to enter the contact details of the business that you're dealing with. And so I'm going to assume contact and put it here, being 0241-593-784. If you might decide to repeat, it could be that the company's phone number and mobile number is different. Fax, I doubt people still use fax numbers again. Then the next thing that we are going to do, our email address. So let's use hardwork at Gmail. If the company has a website, you put the company's website there. Now, book and financial year detail. Financial year begins from, you are basically telling the software that the business that you are registering begins, or you are registering or entering, begins its financial year from so and so date. Now, the basic idea is that apart from few companies in Ghana that use different dates apart from the 1st of January, the main default is that everybody is supposed to start their financial year from the 1st of January of every year. So that is what we are going to assume here. Then we press enter. As soon as you press enter, you realize that the software automatically tells us or puts in that same day as the book beginning from. Also, the idea of accrual concept of accounting. Once you start doing anything financial, you're supposed to record as and when the transaction happens, not when money is received. And so the software thought it wise to make sure that as soon as you select that you are starting your financial year this year, it's going to make sure that that is exactly what is going to happen. All right. So after that, whenever you want to move to the next line in Tally, you press enter button. When you want to go back, you press the backspace. So now we are going to press enter until we get to the Ghana cedis. The Ghana cedi symbol is correct. The former name is the Ghanaian cedi, that's correct. Suffix symbol to amount. Now, what that talks about is, it talks about the simple fact that the currency that we are going to be dealing in, there's a symbol come before the amount or after the amount. Now, if the symbol of the Ghana cedis comes ahead of the currency, that the amount that we are going to be using, and then we are saying that it is prefix. So if it were to show prefix, then we select yes. But then the software is asking us if it's suffix. That means that is it behind the amount, which is no. The Ghanaian cedis is written always in front of the amount. And the second thing that is asking us is to add space between the amount and symbol. To the best of my knowledge, the Ghana cedis doesn't give a space. It normally comes right after we enter our amount. So that is also going to be no. Show amount in millions. The way Ghanaians write their amount in millions, our amount is what we call in millions, where the 100 Ghana cedis or 100,000, the 100 comes, and then the 1,000, then a comma before the 1,000, 3 zeros follow. If that is how we want it arranged, it's a yes. But then if you want it arranged how Indians write their amount, which I would leave you to do a research on your own, then you will leave it as no. But then as at now, we are following the suit of the Ghanaian system. And so we are going to change the no to yes by pressing Y and then pressing enter on the keyboard. Now the next thing is number of decimal places 2, obviously. Now, Word representing amount after decimal. Realize that yes, we have the whole figures of the Ghanaian cities being in Ghana cities. So we have 1 Ghana cities, 2 Ghana cities. But then when we go into decimals, like 20 pesos, 50 pesos. If we are dealing with the decimals, we call it pesos. I think in the US, they'll call it cent. So that is basically what the software is asking. And it's already put Ghanaian pesos there. So we leave it as at that. Then press enter to the next line. No number of decimal places for amount in words, the same as the figures as well. Then we press enter. Now the software is asking us if we want to accept everything that we have entered so far. Is it a yes or a no? And it's a yes. We press Y to save, or you can double click yes with your mouse. Now, realize that initially when we came, we didn't have any company showing here called Hardware Company Limited. And then immediately after we created our business, we have our Hardware Co Limited showing up here. Now, before we go, we restore the backup that I sent all of us. I'm going to take you through the masters of um, Tally. We talk about accounts info, the place where we are going to create everything into two. Now, we all understand from the accounting background that we have that first of all, have what you call accounting elements or account elements. And so if you are dealing with something like the balance sheet, you should have assets, you should have liabilities, equity. Now, manager understands that some of these assets are going to have group accounts falling under them who are further going to have what we call ledgers. Let me give an example. An example is fixed that now fixed asset in managed in Tally ERP 9 is created as a primary. So let's just go into it and then see what we are talking about. Let's see what we have here. Now, you realize that we have a list of accounts created that has primary. These are group accounts, but they are primary because something like fixed asset is going to have a group like building, a group account like building, office equipment, can even talk about motor vehicle. Now, as much as these are ledgers or accounts that fall under the fixed assets, we all understand that when you see building on the financial statement, the building is not just representing one building. It is an accumulation of ledgers or an accumulation of a cluster of assets that is falling under that particular item, right? So in a situation where you're going to create a system where you're going to have another group falling under a main group, that first main group should be a primary group. And we should have the major group falling under, and then the numerous sub-ledgers falling right underneath it. And so that is the basic idea. So with the accounts info section of Tally ERP 9, we are looking at creating accounts. We are looking at creating, uh, let me first, we'll start with primary accounts. We have primary accounts, group accounts, then we are going to have our ledgers falling under them. And so when we go to the info section, you realize we have groups, select group, and it gives you the chance to create. You can create one after the other, or you can create a large quantity of groups at the same time. And then we have ledgers as well. gives you the chance to also do the same thing. You can create one after the other, or you can have a sheet where you create all the ledgers you want to create and then you move on. Now, the second thing we are looking at is also inventory. Inventory is basically where you set up everything related to your inventory. That is your inventory group. Typical example, you could have exercise we are going to do today. We are going to be doing that of a mobile phone business. And so you could have a group like Nokia phones. Then the Nokia phones would have a phone like Nokia 3310, Nokia 1100, Nokia whatever, falling under that group. Just like how we explained the account groups. Okay. So we will have the group, let's say Nokia phones. Then the stock item is where we are going to create every single stock item that falls under the group. The unit measure is where we are going to define the unit measure of the items that we are selling. And then there is a place for category as well, which needs to be activated. Okay. Now, the basic idea here is just to take you through it. These things we are not going to ponder on them because this is just an introductory training to Tally. Later on, when we have our master class, that is where we can go deep into that, teach you how to set up the chart of accounts, print out reports, edit reports, customize reports, all those things has to do with the master class. So we don't want to dive so much into it that it will confuse you. So the basic idea for now was to just explain so that you know, at least have an idea where some of the setting up is done. All of the setting up is actually done in those two places. Now, before we start, I sent everybody a backup of today's training, and it's very important. And I'm going to show you how we are going to upload the backup that we created. Now, to be able to create the backup that we created, what you have to first of all do is realize that we are currently in a company. That's why you see Hard Work Company Limited showing, right? So to be able to go and then restore our backup, we first of all have to close this company. Now, to shut down a company in Manager, you are not deleting it, you're only shutting it down. Simply come to the F1 underlined up here. Then you click on the shutdown company and you realize that that's shut down. Let's close it. Now, the reason why I was asking everybody to copy the backup folder itself into their drive C was because it was going to help us to be able to restore easily. If you have it on a pen drive, you have to understand a bit of DOS matrix to be able to do that. That's why I initially said everybody should just copy it into the drive C, right? So if you were able to copy it into the drive C, this shouldn't be a problem. First of all, come to your restore. Then you click on your restore. And you realize that, so the destination, this is the current destination of the software. That's in the software that we are actually using. But then we are trying to retrieve a backup from a place where we have saved it, right? You realize that mine automatically puts it on C/Tally ERP 9. You also did show because mine, I had to come, I think in the morning session, I uploaded and yeah, this is what came. So what we're going to do is I'm going to also clean everything to give myself a blank sheet. And I'm going to show you how we are actually going to upload again, right? Now, so what we're going to do is we are first of all going to type C, which represents drive C. Then we hit on the shift and then press on the semicolon tab on the keyboard. Then we hit a backslash, telling the software that the source of the backup we want to retrieve is source is on what? On the drive C. And it means that when you go to the drive C, there's a folder there we are calling Tally Backup. Right? So the folder there called the Tally Backup is where we are uploading our backup from. When we're done, then we press enter. And then you realize that the company that I created and sent everybody should show. You have click tuition into bracket 100, created on the 16th of April, 2022. So as soon as it appears, you press on the enter button to select it, then you press on enter again to end the list. Now the software will ask you that, is this what you want to retrieve? Should we accept this transaction or not? And you tell the software yes by pressing Y. Press Y to accept it. Correct. Let me check. Sure. Okay. Okay. I think, okay. So now it's working. Now it's asking us, company already exists, used by hardware, please by click. No, company not restored. So let me go again and try. Um, come back and we try to select our company, and then you realize that what we have stored is what came. Then click on the enter to enter what we have here. All right. So as at now, if anybody has a question, the person can ask before we go forward. Any questions? Okay. Now the next thing that we are going to do is to start recording transactions. Ideally, if someone is coming for a full training section with us, normally would teach you how to set up the whole thing from chart of accounts, all the way to recording transactions. But then this is an introductory training, and so we wouldn't want to stress anybody. So the basic idea is to help us to be able to use the software wherever we find ourselves, because I mean, when you go for an interview, nobody's going to ask you to set up Tally for them. The most important thing for everyone is that, can you use the software? If you can use the software, they are all good to go. So the first transaction that we are going to record is a contract entry. We are going to move money from one account to other. I think some of these things that we all understand, and I wouldn't want to dive into any form of explanation unless someone has a question. So in Tally, if you are or you want to record a transaction, what you are going to use is accounting batches. Put your pointer on the accounting voucher. You click once, you double click to select the accounting voucher. Automatically, it starts with payment. So whenever you open your accounting transaction, the first thing you are going to see is payments. But then we are not looking at working in the field of payments, but then we are looking at working on contra entries, that is transferring money from one account to the other. So what we are going to do first of all is to change from payments to contra entry. To do that, you realize that on the left side, the right side of the screen, probably your left, my right, we have inventory vouchers, we have date. Now the date field is a place where you can define the current dates that you are working in, or the dates in which you want to record the transaction that you are. we are recording. That is where the date tab comes in. Now, for contract entry, you have F4, you have payment F5. Payment is showing what dim. It's showing dim because we are already in the payment field. So once you are there, you can't go and then open it again. You've already opened it. We have the receipts tab, we have the journal tab, we have the sales tab, and then we have the purchase tab. We also have credit notes, debit notes, reversal journals, the memos, and optional transactions too. We have optional journals down here. And they all haven't been activated. And last time we saw, we might have to activate some of them. Some we will not be activating them today. Okay. So the first thing is to record our contract entry. So we click on the F4, and then in the first box, we're going to define what are we doing. Now, per the handout that we posted on the page, we are transferring money from our Access Bank account to, let's say, a cash account, right? So we have our Access Bank account, which currently has a balance of 170,000 Ghana cedis. You can see it here. Now we are moving 2,000 from that account by check or by cash. Moving it by check. And then our check number is going to be 002221. Date, the software believes the date that you are sending it is the very day that you are recording the transaction. In an instance where the date was different, you have to define or tell the software that I sent it on the 2nd of January and then you change the date. You don't automatically pick the date. The software gives you by default, right? And then you press on enter. Now the software understands that, well, we are going to credit our account by 2,000. And so it expects us to enter an opposite transaction, because if we are taking money from Access Bank, the money has to be. And we all understand that we are pushing our money from Access Bank to our cash account. So we are then going to press enter, select by moving the arrow keys or coming to select it with the mouse by double clicking. Yes, 1,000. Okay. Now in the narration box, it gives you the chance to type anything that you might want on the screen to remind whoever might want to use, who might be using the system whilst you are not available. So let's say I can simply type transfer as directed by writer. So that means the proprietor indicated that you should make this transfer immediately. So whoever comes in and sees this transaction will know that, okay, this transaction was a transaction as to be done by the owner of the business. Now you press on enter, then you go to the next line and it will ask us again, do we want to save? Now, if you want to save, you press either Y or double click on the yes with your pointer to save. And this is how to simply record a contract entry in Tally ERP 9. That is exercise activity 4.1. 4.2. We are going to record a transaction. Transaction that we recorded. We are paying rent. We are paying a rent amount of 700 Ghana cedis, which is a payment, right? And so we are going to go to our payment interface, and we do that by coming to the right side again. Then we look for payment, which is F5, or you can hold the FN key on your keyboard and then press F5, select it. For those who have keyboards that doesn't have the FN, you can simply go straight and then press the F5 key and then it will take you there directly. Now, what are we paying? We are paying rent. And so if you are paying rent, you are obviously going to debit our rent and credit the cash accounts that we are making the payment for. The first thing is you are going to look for rent by typing RA, and before long, we have rent expenses showing here. And in the rent expenses, box, the debit box, you are typing the amount you are paying, which is 700 Ghana cedis. The software expects the next entry to be a credit, and so it brings CR at the end of it. So we press on the enter button and then we select the account from which we are paying from. And so we are going to pay from our cash account. So we select C, start typing cash, and then realize that cash is already selected. We'll click on the cash, and then automatically the software puts the figure there, right? Now, we realize that it's telling us, we realize that our first entry was a contract entry where we transferred 2,000 from our Access Bank account to our cash account. Now the software is now telling us that our current balance is 1,300. Why 1,300? Because we are paying 700 Ghana cedis out of that amount. So when you're done, another way to save, if you know you're not going to do anything else, is simply to hold the control button and press A on your keyboard, and then you have the transaction saved. Now, assuming that you made a mistake with the transaction that you did, you can simply press page up on your keyboard to go back to that transaction. And if you want to make any correction, then you make the correction that what you want to make. Now, the third activity we'll be doing today is to pay multiple payments. Now, this time we're not paying for just one item, we're paying for more than one. We're paying advertisement expenses of 500 cedis and transportation expenses of 300 Ghana cedis. And so we're first going to start by selecting our advertisement expenses. And we type 500 Ghana cedis and press enter. Now you realize that as soon as you press the enter, the software is expecting us to enter a credit entry right after the advertisement expense. And then we are not done entering the expenses that we want to enter. And so if we are going to credit, it means we are basically paying. So, we are then going to change the credit to debit by pressing D on the keyboard and then pressing enter. And I realized that the CR that was showing here has changed to DR. Now, when you do that, after we are done with that, we are going to select the ledger we are paying, and that is the transportation expense. So you double click on transportation expense, and then we pay 300 to that account. Now, the software is saying that, okay, you have debited two different ledgers. What else are you going to do again? You have to credit it. So as much as the list you are going to create, this software, once you have entered your first and second debit, first debit is going to consistently ask you to credit until you're done. So you keep changing to the debit until you're done, and then you're ready to enter the account you want to credit, then it will automatically put it there for you. So we are going to credit our Access Bank account. So select our Access Bank account, and it automatically puts the total sum on the debit side there for you. To save, you simply press the Control A and you save. So this is how to enter multiple entry in Manager accounting software. Now the next exercise is activity 4, which is also multiple payments. I think we've done 2 payments as of now, and so I'll be leaving that one for you to do. Let me check something. Let me confirm. Okay. Now the downside with the Control A button is that if you are dealing with Access Bank and with a bank transaction, in an instance where there was an event of you using a check to pay, if you use the Control A, you wouldn't get that option. So I've come back, as I spoke to you about previously, that if there is a correction, you can simply come back and then come back by pressing the page up and then do the edits that you want to do. So I'm here to edit this. So I've highlighted the 800 and I press enter, and then it gives me this. Now, the downside of Using the control is if you're dealing with any item or any transaction that deals with entering details, further details into this case. So we are paying by check, 800 Ghana cedis. Now the instrument number is simply the check number. So that is where you put the check number there. So 00025, and then the date. Now there are instances where the date and then the transaction could be different. Most unlikely, but then let's assume there could be instance like that. Okay. So in such an instance, you enter the date where the check was actually signed. Probably the check was signed ahead, but then um, the accountant brought it to your office later than the date it was signed. And so you have to indicate the date the check was actually signed, and then which may then differ from the day that you are holding the transaction. Now, when you're done, you press enter, enter, and then receive. Now, the fourth is basically the same thing. We are paying salaries, expenses, with paying by cash, by access bank, which we've already treated. So we'll be skipping that, and then we'll be coming to activity 4.05, entering payment against previous invoice. Now, before we go to this, I'm going to make or explain something a little bit. Now, whenever a consultant, an accountant, or an IT guy comes in to implement or install a software for a business, the basic thing all of them are supposed to do is that you enter the closing balance as at the period before they were going to start using the software. So assuming that you have been using manual system of accounting from January to somewhere around April, and I come in to set up the software for you,